Hello everybody and welcome to Project Trade. It is the trading highlights show and we are looking at a technical trading strategy. We are trend hunting today and we've got two indicators helping to guide our path into what will hopefully become the light. First up, we've got the 150 period simple moving average. That's right, it's KISS. We are keeping it simple something. I forget how that ends. But here it is though, the 150 period simple moving average. It is just adding together the price of each of the individual periods and dividing that total by 150, then plotting those data points for each period on the chart and handily connecting them with a line which you can choose the color of. And our second indicator is Bill Williams Accelerator Oscillator. There it is beneath the price chart. It's a momentum oscillator that prints as a histogram with a zero line crossover. In its formula, the accelerator oscillator takes the awesome oscillator value and subtracts from it a 5-period simple moving average of the awesome oscillator. So you'll need to know that the awesome oscillator is a 34-period moving average subtracted from a 5-period moving average. I'm sure that if you don't know these indicators, then that explanation most likely sounds a bit confusing. And unfortunately, I am not going to go into any more detail with them here because we have already done videos on the accelerator oscillator, the awesome oscillator, and even that simple moving average. They'll all be linked in the description if that's what you're after. For the rest of us, let's talk about our entry criteria from these indicators to get us into a trade. With our 150 period simple moving average, that is going to be the initial filter on our entries. So if the price is closed above the moving average, then we'll only be taking buy signals. And if it's closed below the average, then we'll only be taking sell signals. Then when it comes to the accelerator oscillator, we are throwing Bill Williams' advice straight out of the window and we are using it as a zero line crossover. Why though, if Bill Williams doesn't really recommend using it like that? Well, Bill Williams uses multiple histogram bars to confirm a trend. So he would say, for example, that you need 2 green histogram bars above the zero line as confirmation of an uptrend. But when back testing with the accelerator oscillator, it wasn't that often that if the histogram crossed above zero, that it wouldn't print 2 consecutive green bars anyway. That became especially true when you were already using a filter such as the 150 period simple moving average. This means that you could regularly miss out on part of the price move in your trade, but not really be filtering out any bad trades to balance it out. Hence, we are going for the zero line crossover, but we'll track it as we go and we will report back. And also we will only be taking that entry signal on the immediate crossover. If price isn't on the correct side of the moving average for us to enter a trade from the accelerator oscillator crossover, we are not going to give it any time to catch up. It is the close of the first histogram bar as the signal, or it is no signal at all. Here are some examples of entry signals that we would take. I've marked all the histogram bars in yellow where price first closes. Those are 4 buy signals we'd get from the accelerator oscillator when the price is above the moving average. The first 2 of those might get us some profits, but the latter 2, they look no good. And then when price comes below the moving average, there's 3 sell trades that we take there. First one is pretty good, but that second one, not so much, with the third one being quite flat as price goes off the screen. So on the whole, pretty mixed trades on this chart, but we would listen to the system and take all of the trades and let the digital demo funds fall where they may. We must also, of course, manage our money so that we don't end up without any. And the indicator that's going to be helping us with that is the average true range. Video linked in the description. You can see it here, that single line oscillator that measures the average price range over the number of candles that it's asked to look back at. We will ask it to look back at the indicator default of 14 periods. No splits for our trades. When we enter, it will be 1 trade, and for both the take profit and stop loss, it will be 1.5 times the ATR value from our entry price. Naturally, that means we'll need more winning trades than losing trades to be profitable. I think it's possible, maybe. And we'll be risking 1% of our capital per trade. So the volume we use will equate to the amount that means that 1.5 times ATR from our entry price, we will be 1% down on our capital from when we entered the trade. Also, should the accelerator oscillator recross its zero line against our trade direction and close there, then we will manually shut our trade off as we'll assume that the signal has gone. Final couple notes, we will be trading the strategy on a 15-minute time frame. Yep, 15 minutes stuffed into each one of those candles, and we'll be following 3 currency pairs just in case one of them happens to leave us out of trades for days on end. So it's trouble in paradise. We've got the United States dollar versus the Canadian dollar, the euro versus the Swiss franc, and the Australian dollar versus the New Zealand dollar. That's 3 currency pairs, 6 currencies, and a theme of geographically close political allies going hard at one another in the forex wars. What else could you ever possibly need in life? Apart from a journal, of course. That is correct. I finally found a reason to use the skill of writing just like one of those intellectual types, and it is to make sure that we do not let our bias and memory get in the way of truth through trade results. And that's all any of us need to give it a whirl. So let's get into the platform and give it a whirl. Here we are on the charts, just come up to 10:30 in a couple minutes time. The US dollar, Canadian dollar here on the left, in the middle here, the euro, Swiss franc, and then over on the right, the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar. And what is going on for us then on these charts? Price has been churning up on the US dollar, Canadian dollar the last hour and a half or so. It's now found its way above the moving average, and the accelerator oscillator very far across zero. Going to take some time to come back down. It might still be above the price when it does. Euro, Swiss franc, nothing for us here either. Same sort of story, has been climbing for even longer than the US dollar, Canadian dollar. Bit of a steady climb during the end of the Asia session, and then the last couple hours really come through here. Still could be coming back down here now, so with a few quick red candles, we could see this come across the moving average and see the accelerator oscillator dip across that zero line. Hopefully not like this signal right here. That's a baddie. Meanwhile, on the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar pair over here on the right, bit more action going on. We are pretty close to a crossover. You can barely see any of these histogram bars. That was a positive, that was a negative, and then positive, 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 negative, still just negative at the moment, but we see this green price coming. So in fact, let's wait for this to roll over 5 seconds time here to 10:30. And we will get the new histogram bar appear here. And as we can see, pretty green. If we zoom back out just to make sure, price comfortably above that 150 period moving average. So if it closes out like this in 15 times, we will have a buy trade on the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar. It's a very shallow reading though on the accelerator oscillator. So if we see a big red candle, could easily see that flip back across and get no signal from it. Even if we do get the signal, if it's going to crisscross like this, it's not going to be something we want. We're after proper moves here of at least 1.5 times ATR. So we'll watch for that closely if we do get the entry. You see it's very close to getting below zero there. Down now at 0.000007. We do have a little bit of time though, so let's check out our economic calendar, see what's going on today. Some of these numbers haven't come through. In fact, none of the numbers come through. Did try a restart of MetaTrader just to see if they would pop in there, but they are lacking in data currently. So we should have had the Australian dollar retail sales month-on-month numbers come through. Previous negative 2.7 forecast here at 0.8. Don't know if that's correct, but it did come in at negative 1.7. So regardless of forecast, a pretty poor reading for them there. Also in Germany and the Eurozone, should have had the consumer climate from the GfK Institute come through. It's forecast at negative 0.7 with the previous on negative 1.2. And did actually come in at 0.3, so pretty good. Nice peak for them there. They'll be happy with that. Consumers getting a little bit more confident maybe going into the Christmas period. We'll see if any of these other numbers come in throughout the day. Nothing really that's going to affect us as we go, but here's some of them. You've got 10:30 Swedish trade balance. That should have come in 5 minutes ago. 11 o'clock South African Rand quarterly bulletin. 11:30 Hong Kong dollar trade balance. 2 o'clock, Mexican peso unemployment rate there. Then 3 o'clock, we've got ECB President Christine Lagarde making a speech. It seems like it could have a lot of impact, but she makes a lot of speeches. A lot of the time, they just don't impact. Might see a small increase in volatility, but again, not always, depending on what she's talking about. Then 3:30 on the US dollar, a bit more interesting with the numbers here. The goods trade balance coming in and the retail inventories month on month, along with the retail inventories excluding autos. Also month on month. Even though those aren't particularly heavy duty, the fact that it's US dollar, we are trading on the US dollar, and the kick over it might have in volatility and volume at that time, 3:30. That'll be the time to watch, just under 5 hours till then. And then throughout the rest of the day, it just sort of dwindles off with a lot of different speeches across the Eurozone from the ECB and also in the US dollar. Snuck in there though, with 5 o'clock alongside Fed Chair Powell's testimony, is actually the CB Consumer Confidence Index. So 5 o'clock could also be a volatile time, especially being alongside Fed Chair Powell's testimony. It's where he goes in front of a committee or some sort of the US Congress. He gives the overview of what's been happening and then the outlook of the future. People are often pretty interested in what Jay Powell's got to say. Not surprisingly, as the chairman of the central bank of the strongest currency in the world. But yeah, 3:30, 5 o'clock, those are the big times we'll be watching. And we'll be hoping that these numbers actually do feed through as well. Maybe someone has fallen asleep at the wheel and just forgot to update them. For now though, on the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar pair, price continuing to push a little bit, accelerator oscillator still above zero, and we got 4.5 minutes until the close there. About 40 seconds to go, price coming down, but the accelerator oscillator still above zero, and that is what we're after. So let's pull up our average true range here on the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar. Currently showing 5.5 pips, that's what we're going to go for as our reading. It's coming back down that accelerator oscillator. Ugh, don't know about this. We do get the close though, it's still above zero even though it might flip. We need the close of the flip across zero though to actually get out of the trade. So here we go, there is our risk on screen now because of this low level ATR currently showing, well, it was 5.5 is what we've gone for. So 1.5 times that is 8.25 pips. It's going to be very narrow, quite a bit of volume here. So let's go in 1% risk with our buy trade. There is our trade then, what a trade it is. We can set our stop loss and take profit here. Let's round that up, 83 and 83 here. You can certainly see the stop loss there. Where's that take profit? Let's zoom out again, zoom out again, zoom out again. There it is, we finally see it. So this is a tall order to get all the way up to there, to be honest. Seems much more likely to come down, but it has been strengthening over this period, and all we're asking for is 1.5 times ATR to the good. We are also seeing on the Euro Swiss franc the accelerator oscillator now coming below zero. That is a crossover right there. Currently it's still above the moving average, so price will have a long way to go to be able to actually give the signal. It's possible though. Anything's possible. Just rolling over 11 o'clock. Our trade going pretty nicely at the minute. $33 in profit. About a third of the way there to our take profit. And in the middle here on the Euro Swiss franc, we do see that cross below zero on the accelerator oscillator is sustained. However, with price moving upwards now, it's currently an incredibly shallow reading. In fact, it's just gone positive there. So we may see a crossover here on the Euro Swiss franc as well, getting us into a buy trade. And as we see the candle finish red there on the Euro Swiss franc, the accelerator oscillator does move quite a bit more below zero. So no sustained signal there. This is why you have to wait for the close and can't just go in over a little bit of a crossover. Meanwhile, our trade ticking along nicely. Did get to a low last period that came beneath our entry price, but now back into profit. Price continuing to find new highs here. We can now see the take profit there on our trade on the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar. It's very close. Is it going to go there? Let's have one more push. Just find a new high here if you can. And we get the trigger there. Our take profit goes. What a trade. $100.18. You can see the run up there from blue to red. That is good. The first trade a winner. Very nice to see. No other signals tempting us right now, but they can come on quick with the accelerator oscillator. And this is how it can sneak up at you. Over on the US dollar, Canadian dollar there on the left, you can barely see it, as is sometimes the case there, but that value is a negative value on the accelerator oscillator. If price could push below the average, then it would very likely mean that that would be a crossover and would be a sell signal for us. Could see that come. Meanwhile, we are wishing over on the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar, we were still in that trade. The ratio, it did seem to do us well as price pulled back here to a new low. Thought we were going to catch the top, but here it comes into new highs. Potentially more could have been got out of it. We'll see how much further it goes. 12.14. We're seeing a big push on the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar. Still wishing we were in that. Meanwhile, the sell-off of the Euro Swiss franc continues as we see a big red candle. But we are going to zoom in on the main player here, the US dollar, Canadian dollar. Zoom in right there. Currently, it's still reading a negative value on the accelerator oscillator. Price now shifted below the moving average. Didn't look like it was going to when it was up here at this high there. Didn't look like we were going to get that close. Now it does. Let's pull up our ATR. Currently showing 11.9 pips. That is what we will go for. And there's the close. We do get the entry signal just about as we see that accelerator oscillator as well get lower down there in its value. And there we go. You can see our risk calculator on screen now. Definitely a bit smaller volume here. Wider stop loss with that higher ATR there. So we are in for a sell trade. Let's set our stop loss and take profit. Again, 1% capital risk. 179 points or 17.9 pips. Stop loss here at the resistance level. So hopefully if we are going to see anything, we at least see lower highs come if it retraces for an overall downward trend. Something that makes me a little less confident about the trade is when you see this level over here. It does seem like it could end up being a support level. This might be a retracement that it just bounces into this one and then continues upward. We did get those economic calendar numbers feed through as well. So there's the retail sales month on month, actual negative 1.7, as we said, and the GfK consumer climate there, 0.3. And the other couple numbers that have come out since then, 10:30 on the Swedish currency. They missed out on their trade balance by just a little bit there. And same at 11:30 on the Hong Kong dollar. Trade balance, not usually the most impactful. That was only the goods trade balance for Sweden as well. So missing those by a touch shouldn't cause any major grievances. Still though, everybody would like to have a positive trade balance. So we've had so far, nothing else coming up for a bit. Still looking at 3:30 and 5 o'clock as the big times to watch. As we do see the price move to our favour a bit now, that's what we want. If it can keep coming down, find those lows, red candle after red candle, we are happy to take the profit. See how it goes? And we get the close of the candle there. Price has moved against us and moved above the moving average there, the 150. That's not a signal for us to close there. We're only taking close signals from either the stop loss or the accelerator oscillator. That's still showing below zero, so we are good for the trade, although obviously not too happy that it's going against us. Almost halfway towards our stop loss. So for the return, edging closer towards our stop loss here. Not what we want to see. Consecutive green candles have been coming. This is where we need that higher low to occur here. Let's see that pull back. No, come the other way, come back down. Let's have a big drop off into the red now. No, it does bounce. It bounces off the support level here and it takes out that stop loss there. So there's a full and complete loss, wiping out the gains that we made from the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar. A little bit more. We started exactly on $10,000 there. 29 cents below it now. If we do get a couple more candles, then we will sure enough see this go above zero again, and that would get us into a buy trade. Let's watch out for that. We do see that reverse crossover at 1 o'clock. Accelerator oscillator now above zero. So if it closes like that, we will be in with a buy trade on this US dollar, Canadian dollar. Not too long since we got out of that sell trade. Well, we didn't get out of it. The stop loss got us out of it. I was kind of happier with this entry to begin with. Now getting back in the other way doesn't feel great. Seems like it could bounce off this resistance level once we're in and then come back down here, trigger our stop loss right at the support level there. 1:14 p.m. and it looks like we will be getting into this trade in a minute's time here. Zoom in, US dollar, Canadian dollar, and let's get that ATR up. 11.2 pips, that's what we're going to go for there. 112 points. 1.5 times that is 16.8 pips. Our risk is calculated on screen now. We are getting back in with a buy trade this time. Feels like we're basically giving away 1% of our account here, but I would love to be proved wrong. We've certainly seen bigger run-ups than this. If we could catch one of those right there, wouldn't mind some of that. Let's go. And of course we will just pop on that stop loss and that take profit there at the 168 point mark. Modify that and there we go. And we are hoping that if there is a retracement, let it just be a brief retracement here. I mean, these green candles, they can't go on forever. It does feel like we're going to be right at the end of the tailwind there. Meanwhile, we did also get a zero line crossover on the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar. Beneath zero, it closed there after a big sell-off came. Not a trade we can take as the price is above the moving average, so we're buy trades only. Going to have to wait for that to recross now. And also on the Euro Swiss franc here, we can see price coming above the moving average, and it's another crossover on the accelerator oscillator. So if half-past one comes 13 minutes time, and this is just as it is now, then we'll also be getting into a buy trade here in favor of the euro. You never know, looking across at this US dollar Canadian dollar pair, we might be out of that trade before we get into the euro one. And look at how fast this has dropped here, only 3.5 minutes into our trade, and it is already getting absolutely crushed here, about 3/4 of the way to the stop loss. Momentum really out of the sails here. Trade still in a loss at the moment, but only about 1/3 of the way to the stop loss. Much better than previously. But let's zoom in on this Euro Swiss franc pair. Has been below the moving average plenty, currently above it though, which means we will get the signal as is. Let's pull up the ATR, we'll want to know that either way. So we've got 8.3 pips on the ATR. 1.5 times that number is 12.45 pips. And we get the close. There is our risk calculated on screen now. Do a nice bit of rounding there, 0.75 volume. Let's pop this stop loss and take profit in there. There we go. Zoom out, see if we can see. That is our take profit right up, again at a resistance level. See, it feels like a long way to go at the moment. And similarly, support level down here. Again, it would take a while to get there, hopefully without some crazy downward volatility. So we've now got two trades open, both of them running a little bit of a loss at the moment, but there is certainly hope out there for us. It is a 2:15 now. Both of our trades, not really anything happening with them. You can see US dollar, Canadian dollar, very rangy over the last hour or so, and same in the euro Swiss franc. Something we are looking at is with the US dollar, Canadian dollar, that accelerator oscillator is actually below the zero level now, which means if it closes like that half past, we will have to manually close the trade out wherever we are. So if we're going to see a move, we need it to come now. The euro Swiss franc pair will threaten the same thing soon if price doesn't make a move. It will just sort of run out of momentum and eventually cross zero. But it has got a couple more bars than the US dollar, Canadian dollar. Here comes the close of that candle then, and we are going to see the accelerator oscillator finish below. So we manually close off our US dollar trade. That's a loss of $39.06. So not a full 1% capital loss, but still 0.4%. Certainly not a win there. Would be nice if the accelerator oscillator kept on going when it's in a range here, because even though it's flipped, we're not actually seeing a trend direction movement at all. It's just come down a small amount. We've just seen more lows really than the highs we've seen. So a bit unfortunate there. We might see it break one way or the other soon. Finally, we did see the Mexican peso unemployment rate come through. They had a 4.3% actual against a 5% forecast and a 5.4% previous. Good growth for them. I'll be pleased to get that unemployment rate down. And what we do see now on our euro Swiss franc trade, the accelerator oscillator has moved below zero. That does mean we're in the same position now as we just were with that US dollar, Canadian dollar trade. If it closes like this, we've got to close the trade and accept whatever loss we've got. It did create quite a low there. Remember, as the accelerator oscillator uses medium price, that low can make quite the difference. So let's hope for a bit of a return once more, see if we can get into some profit just to be able to snack some at the last minute or even flip it with a crazy big run. That would always be appreciated. 5 seconds to go here. It is going to be a manual close of our trade as we roll over 3 o'clock there and we shut it off again for a similar amount as last time. Very similar to our US dollar, Canadian dollar trade. $35 off this one. It was $39 off the last, but still a loss though. Let's see, because I mean, this one on the US dollar, Canadian dollar, it's worth noting that where we got out here, if we had stayed in, if the accelerator oscillator hadn't taken us out, it would have been stop loss city for us. And that would have been a full 1% loss in the end. So we were saved by the accelerator in a way. Possible that we see the same scenario play out on the euro Swiss franc. Meanwhile, as my gaze finds its way to the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar pair, I can see that the accelerator oscillator has just crossed above zero, and we do have price above that moving average there, which means 3:15, we could well be going in with a buy trade. 3:14 p.m. here, and this Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar does look like it's going to give us the go ahead. Let's get onto that chart, pull up our ATR, currently reading 6.5 pips, 65 points, 6 pips, 5 pipettes. That's what we're going to go for. We times that by 1.5 and we get 9.75 pips. Here comes the close, and it does come. We do get the buy signal, price above, accelerator oscillator crosses. That is our risk, and in we go. As per every trade, let's do our stop loss and our take profit there, equidistance from one another. And we're really in the middle of a sort of range here. We've had a resistance level up here, a support level down here. Anyone's guess which way it's going to go. Could bounce off where we are now, but we've also got numbers coming in at 3:30 on the US dollar. We could see increased volatility in the markets in general, see a volume spike here. Let's get some green, let's get the take profit. We need a winning trade to get us back above 10,000 again. Nothing else on the other charts at the moment, but they are both coming up on the accelerator oscillator, and both of them would give buy trades crossing above zero. Our trade edging itself towards the stop loss here as we go into 3:30. Here comes those numbers, goods trade balance and retail inventories month on month on the US dollar. And there it is. That didn't take long. Just about 2 candles. Looks like we got in right at the very top of this run up here for a full 1% loss on that one, which is taking us into considerable amount of losses here, especially when you consider that we did get a winning trade right at the start of the day. We are now down $176.59. And as we get into the new candle here, you can see we are getting dual signals here from the US dollar, Canadian dollar, and the euro Swiss franc. All they've got to do is close to the positive there on the accelerator oscillator, and we are in both of them. Back in fact, because we've already been in buy trades for both of them just a couple hours ago. So why not get back in at an even higher price on them? The trusty accelerator oscillator. Let's see where we're at in 15 minutes. It does look as though we are going to get both these entry signals here in a minute. Let's pull up those ATRs. Let's do our US dollar, Canadian dollar first. We got 12.1 pips there as the ATR, which is 18.15 for the stop loss take profit. 6.2 on the euro Swiss franc as we come into the close here. There's 9.3 pips to the stop loss, and we do get it there. You can see double entries. So we are ready. You can see for the US dollar, Canadian dollar, it's a buy trade. There is our risk calculated on screen now. Very nice volume amount. So let's go in with a buy. And on the euro Swiss franc, here is our risk for that one. You can see that calculated there. And it's a buy trade here also. Double trades here. So confident about that. Let's do stop loss and take profit for the US dollar Canadian dollar pair. There it is. Once again, we can see the stop loss, the take profit up in the clouds somewhere as we're hoping for this to continue and not come back into the support level here. And with the euro Swiss franc pair, 93 and 93. There we go. And again, you can see the stop loss, not the take profit. It's up there somewhere. Yeah, I don't know about this. These are the 3:30 entries, basically. It's just gone 4 o'clock now, but it's the power that's come into the market from the 3:30 takeover there. The volume that comes in, you can see it's increased, and they've been buying the dollars, they've been buying the euros. Now it's a good chance it's going to be time for that retracement, and we could see 1% plus another 1%, 2% of our capital disintegrate further here. It's trade number 6 and 7 for the day. One period in here, pretty grim situation at the moment. The US dollar, Canadian dollar, definitely threatening that stop loss. Very close there, about 3/4 of the way. The euro Swiss franc not going quite as bad, but still halfway towards our stop loss. Oh, there we go. Stop loss triggers on the US dollar, Canadian dollar. Another loss for the accelerator oscillator. Look at the choppiness here. Another $100 gone. Now we're down to 9,720, and this is dropping quick. Our euro Swiss franc still in loss, but it is coming back a bit to our favor. We might get into a touch of profit, but these trades do keep getting shorter as well. This Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar was gone by the next period, and same now with the US dollar, Canadian dollar, gone by the very next period. That accelerator oscillator tries to be quick, ends up too slow still. It's our experience so far, at least. Quite the bounce back in price here on the euro Swiss franc over the last couple minutes. You can see how close that came to our stop loss there, and now just a bounce right up, almost back near our entry price now. Let's have some more of that. Keep pushing green. And what a close that was on the candle. Look at that. And it continues to push. We are over halfway towards our take profit. Let's see if we can finally once again feel what it's like to win. Very close to our take profit now. We can actually see that level. It looks like it's going to push. The only disappointing thing is we can see how the euro Swiss franc trade is really mirroring the US dollar, Canadian dollar over here. There is our take profit. Brilliant. That is fantastic. Absolutely over the moon with that. But as I was saying, US dollar, Canadian dollar, there's a chance we could have got profit out of this as well. It wouldn't have got there yet, so we'd have to still see some more green over here. Hasn't pushed like the euro Swiss franc did for us, but it could be that we were knocked out pretty close to the bottom there. It did go a touch lower, so we weren't right at the bottom, but that massive green candle was duplicated over here on the US dollar, Canadian dollar. Let's see if it can go much further. $100 back for us though. At least we got back the profits from that loss. So now those two trades basically cancelling each other out. And the US dollar really strengthening there. Likely that would have been our take profit had we not been cut out here. You can see an increase in volume. That came 4:30. Stock market opened as well then. And we got 10 minutes until these conference board consumer confidence index numbers come out, as well as Fed Chair Powell's testimony. The clock strikes 5. Let's see if we can get even more increased volume. And we finally got all these numbers through. So the US dollar goods trade balance came in at negative 87.6 billion. That was against the forecast of negative 88.6 billion. Slightly better than expected for them. And then retail inventories coming in month on month at 0.1% against 0.4% forecast. 4 o'clock, we did also get on the US dollar the house price index composite 20. 19.9% year on year against the forecast of 19.6. About as expected there. Here's the big one though, the consumer confidence that came in at 5 o'clock. It did come in weaker despite the fact that we are seeing the dollar strengthen here. That is 109.3 actual against 121.5 forecast. So quite a miss there. Consumers not as confident as the forecasts expected them to be. Just coming up to 6 o'clock here, and we do have to watch out on this euro Swiss franc. We are seeing a crossover here under on the accelerator oscillator. Price is above the moving average now, but it's very close. Let's pull up our ATR just in case. If it does give us the signal, we'd go for 7.8 pips, which would be 11.7 pips to the stop loss and the take profit, but it does not come. So even if it keeps going down now, that signal's been missed. We didn't get the close across the average. I thought there might have been a buy signal coming up on the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar as well, but that is still below zero there. And we see on the US dollar, Canadian dollar pair, US dollar strengthening again, getting a close above that previous high. Since it looks like we are going to have to wait a little bit before we get an entry signal, we are going to call it there for the end of the session. We've seen at the peak of the volume now, it's going to start trailing off. Jerome Powell and Janet Yellen are still speaking to Congress, but I definitely imagine that this will start petering off. We were able to snag a couple wins in this one here. That was very lucky because now it really does look like we got out right at the top there, and it makes up for the bad luck we had here where we got knocked out at the bottom and it actually reversed. So balances out there. Overall, not a good day though. $181.15 down from it. 7 trades, 5 losers, 2 winners. We will be back for a second session though in the morning. Almost 10 o'clock here now, back for day 2. All our 3 charts pulled up and you can see every one of them currently with price above the moving average here, signaling to us that we can only get into buy trades. And down on the accelerator oscillator, let's take a look very close to a crossover on this US dollar Canadian dollar pair here. It is still negative at the moment, but with candles like this coming, we'll almost certainly see that crossover happen very soon. The Euro Swiss franc and the Aussie dollar New Zealand dollar not as close. Price been coming down more on those charts than it has on the US dollar CAD. So unless price starts to spike, I would imagine that we don't get to see a signal from those for a bit. But there it is on the US dollar Canadian dollar. We see now where that goes above. What did it finish? Finish negative 0.000046. So 10.15, if it finishes like that, we will be in a trade. Certainly didn't take us long. What is occurring on our economic calendar as well? Absolutely nothing in the Asia session at all. All quiet on the Eastern Front. 9 o'clock GBP, they've got nationwide house price index month on month and year on year forecast. That was meant to come in an hour ago. I haven't seen it yet. I did do a search and couldn't find anything online either, so not sure if this is a mistake. We'll see if that feeds through. In the last minute and a half as well, we've just had in the Eurozone from Spain, the CPI and the HICP, both month on month. The CPI there coming in 0.8% actual against a 1.2% forecast. I imagine that comes across as good news to them, even though it shows in red here like it was a loss. I think they'll be more pleased with 0.8 than 1.2. Not that 0.8 is great, of course. That's all we've had so far. 11 o'clock in the Eurozone again from Italy. We've got the PPI month on month, forecast at 2% with a previous of 2.1. So really high PPI. They'll be hoping for something similar as Spain here to get a lower figure out of the result. 12:30, 10-year bond auctions for Germany and Italy. Brazilian numbers in the early afternoon, PPI month on month at 3 o'clock, with the nominal budget balance and primary budget balance falling at 3:30. Their PPI is forecast at 3.28%. Once more, I would certainly imagine they want to get under that. They are seeing a higher period of inflation over there. Canada at 3:30, we've got the industrial products price index month on month and the raw materials price index month on month. The IPPI forecast at 0.9 and the RMPI forecast at 0.0, completely flat. We'll see how those come in. We are trading on the Canadian dollar. Might see a little bit of impact there. Certainly 3:30 is a popular time to be on the Forex charts. So we should see high volume around then anyway. Just seeing this US dollar Canadian dollar candle poke up here above our economic calendar. 4 o'clock Swiss quarterly bulletin. Can't see that moving much. 5 o'clock on the US dollar. You've got pending home sales month on month, year on year. I could see a bit of impact again, certainly in the height of the day there. So volume will be flowing and likely we'll see a little bit of an increase there at 5 o'clock. And then that's about it really. There's some speeches in the evening. Fed Chair Powell, 6:45, same time as Christine Lagarde. If we're still trading then, could be increased volatility. So not a lot of big movers there for us on the calendar. Let's get back on these charts here. And look at this candle. Would have been nice to be in this run up. If this stays up at this resistance level here, look at this. If this stays up here, this does not bode well for us getting into a trade, I do not think. Already seen 3 consecutive green candles, which amount to around about 22 pips. I could certainly imagine getting in here and seeing momentum be exhausted, which isn't necessarily the end of your trade, but it does depend on whether you can handle a retracement or not. The ATR needs to be wide enough to allow price to come back a bit, because if not, you could easily get caught in a couple periods flash retracement. This signal should still be coming then at 10:15. 20 seconds now until the signal comes for us, Let's zoom in, let's pull up that chart here, let's get our average true range up. It is 9.2 pips times 1.5 as we do see the close there. That makes it 13.8 pips to the stop loss. So that is our risk calculated on screen now. Let's go for our buy trade. And of course, the stop loss and take profit here. Let's go 138 and 138. And there you have it. This take profit, it's not above that high back there. So maybe we do make a go of it. There we go. Continues to push now. Just over $25 to the good. I'm still expecting to see a retracement in price before we get to that take profit level, if we ever get to the take profit level. It's whether that retracement takes you all the way down to a support level and then bounces back up, or whether it just dips into your loss territory but then actually moves on. Doesn't look like we have to worry about the way it's going though. Halfway to our take profit already. Price really with a move on here. And here does come that retracement. We see now it's about halfway to our stop loss. Needs to be able to cope with it, needs to say no, we don't want a retracement big enough to knock that stop loss out at 1.5 times ATR. Let's just stop at say 1 times ATR and get back on that upward trend. We need that pullback right now. It is bordering our stop loss, and it does go there. A full loss there that didn't take long at all. In fact, same candle, could be a blessing that we're out of it, but we could just see this as a retracement and see it break from this range. When you see at a level like this, you could certainly interpret that as resistance, and it's simply a case of price getting up to resistance, sellers stepping into the market and saying, no, that's too much for us, we want to go down. We'll see what happens, but right now that was a $99.38 loss. Does put us on the back foot for the day. We need some back-to-back winning trades come our way so that we don't go off the deep end with this strategy now. See what's happening on those other charts as we come into the end of the candle here. This Australian dollar and New Zealand dollar still below zero on the accelerator oscillator, but it is going to flip now, and it does. So if we get a close like that, we may well have a buy trade going over here. Again, this looks like it could be, well, it is at the top for a long time at least. So more so, I feel like I could do with a big reversal here on price, get that accelerator oscillator back below zero. Not really a signal I want to take after witnessing what just happened here on the run up of the US dollar, Canadian dollar. And on the euro Swiss franc, people have been selling off the euro big time. It is now beneath the moving average, but the accelerator has been below zero for a good while now, which means we could be a ways off a signal on that chart. For now, our focus will be on the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar though, see if we get that entry in 14 minutes time. 25 seconds to go, and even though price has turned red here on the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar, it does look like we're going to get that signal. Let's pull up the ATR. 5.2 pips, 1.5 times that, 7.8. And we do get the close here, so 1% risk as always. Let's get in with our trade here. 1.79 volume there, and we are in for a buy. Stop loss and take profit in here. Take profit out there in the wild, up there somewhere. Just about $30 down at the moment, but hopefully once again this is the retracement. Let's see, can it cope with the red? And even if it gets down right down here, that's absolutely fine, as long as it reverses, goes green, eventually gets our take profit. That's all we want. Meanwhile, over on the economic calendar, we did have the PPI from Italy there month on month come in, and it was a lot lower than forecast. They'll be very pleased with that one. 0.5% actual against a 2% forecast. Also worth noting, they did remove the calendar entry entirely for the nationwide house price index. Must have realized that that's not actually happening today. It has been continually creeping towards our stop loss though, and it looks like it's ready for a drop off. Just gone past 11:30, and price very close to our stop loss here on the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar trade. And in fact, it's getting so close that we've seen momentum shift, and the accelerator oscillator is below zero, which means at 11:45, 14.5 minutes time, if we stay like that, we will have to manually close out the trade. With 15 seconds until the close, it does seem as though we're going to be shutting down this trade, despite the fact we've seen a nice green candle come here. This is something the accelerator oscillator struggles with a bit. It doesn't know when something's a retracement. It just kind of crosses over. That's what we're feeling at the moment. So we do see that there, so we'll have to shut that down. That's about a half a loss there. It's $49.72. Disappointing again. It'd be interesting to see what happens with price now. Could continue way back up. I mean, over here on the US dollar, Canadian dollar, that's what we saw. We were in on this giant red candle over here that took us out, carried on down for another couple minutes before it's gone up and up and up over the last hour and a half. This candle here, in case anyone wants to see it, that histogram bar there, it did close positive still. It looked like it was going to go negative for a minute, which means that then we would have been on the watch for the recrossover as we see here. but it was slightly above zero. 12:15 here, and we are focused in on the Euro Swiss franc. Let's zoom in there. That last candle, you can't really see the histogram bar, but it did actually cross over zero there. 0.000005. So that's a positive value. Now it's flipping back the other way, currently a negative number. So if we don't see price go green and reflip it above zero in the next 15 minutes, we've got a sell trade here on the Euro Swiss franc. 1 minute until the close of that candle then. Let's get back on this Euro Swiss franc chart. It is still under the accelerator oscillator. I'm sort of glad the price has turned a bit green. Don't know if it'll go green enough for us not to get the trade. It does seem to push. Better to be up here than all the way down there, I would say though. Let's put up the average true range. 6.1 pips there on the ATR, and if we multiply that by 1.5, we get 9.15. Gonna wait for the full close here just in case it doesn't come some sort of big spike. Here we go. There it is. That is a narrow reading, and now it's still negative, only just, but we know our risk. That is calculated on screen now. Let's get in with this trade here. We are selling off the market. Hopefully this proves to be a good entry position. I was looking at the price when it was down here, and I wasn't so confident in that. We're regularly seeing the accelerator oscillator extend to this sort of level in momentum, and then once we're in, the retracement comes only after that. So all we can do is hope that this is good enough this time around for us to get to a take profit, and we can set that stop loss and take profit, which will be 92 points either side. There we see, as always, the stop loss very visible to us. Zoom out a little bit. Can we see it? There it is. There's our take profit. Quite far down, right at this support level. We should get a decent amount of time in the trade either way though. ATR had been on the rise after this volatile whipsaw range here. Try and make money in that. Yeah, it looks more ready to drop than go up, but we do see it move green a little bit. 1:15, what's going on? A Euro Swiss franc trade here. Mostly just ranging around our entry price, but it's coming good at the minute. Let's have another big drop off like that. $31 in profit at the moment, just under a third of the way to the take profit. Bit more there, and we do see the take profit line appear there actually, right at the bottom of the screen. So we've got a visual on that now. We can see where we're headed to. On the other charts, US dollar, Canadian dollar here on the left has crossed and closed below zero. Downward momentum still in play here, but if it turns, we could get into a trade sort of around about this level if we see a couple green candles come. And likewise on the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar, this time over on the right, you can see price has been coming up. That accelerator oscillator, it is still just about below zero. With these two green candles here, unless we see a reversal in price, we should see the accelerator oscillator cross zero, and maybe around about here or so, we could get ourselves into a buy trade. Price here has made a real push towards our take profit. We're about 3/4 of the way there. We do get it. There's the trigger. Take profit goes. Brilliant trade. Look at that. That is how we do it. And you can see, nice trade there. What are we in? About 3 periods or so. Bring it up on the history there. $97.15. We are still down for the day, but it does give us a little bit more faith. We are still down for the day, but it does bring back some faith in the accelerator oscillator. I wonder if this push is going to continue on the Euro Swiss franc, or whether now we see a retracement or back into one of these ranges here. Either way, we don't mind. We've taken our profit. We can dash from the scene with the loot. As for that Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar trade, it's starting to look less likely when we see a red candle like this, still below the accelerator oscillator. Just after 2:30 p.m. here, and on the US dollar, Canadian dollar, we see the beginnings of a trade entry signal for us. Accelerator oscillator now moved above zero, only just about finished negative before, but now we could see ourselves get a buy entry in 14.5 minutes, right up at this kind of level here. Maybe it can even go higher. Maybe it can get us in right towards the top of this resistance. Let's see. 14 minutes, we'll find out where we're at. 30 seconds until the close. It is going to give us that signal. Price has done nothing but go green. Has pulled back from the top. Didn't manage to find a low in this candle. Let's get up that ATR. That is 9.4 pips we're going to go for. So 14.1 pips to the stop loss and the take profit. There's the confirmation. Let's get our risk up on screen. And we are back in with a buy trade. A lot higher than we were in this morning. Now I guess the accelerator oscillator is really confident. How confident are you in this one? Let's get that stop loss on with the take profit. And here does come that selling pressure just about 12 minutes after entry. And we are hurtling towards the stop loss here. Big red candle coming in. Almost 3:15 here. Our US dollar, Canadian dollar trade ranging in between the entry price and stop loss. Fear not if it goes to that stop loss though, because we've got another entry signal coming here on the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar. It's giving us a buy signal right up at this resistance level. Perfect stuff. There's our average true range. We're going to go for 4.5 pips. It's getting shallower a bit, that ATR. 4.5 is the number. You see the close there. We do get the signal. So 6.75 pips to the stop loss. Let's get in here with a buy trade. Yeah, after the spread is accounted for, it is at the highest period it's been in a long while. And that's not even account for how far we've got to go. This is so unlikely to trigger. Man, the accelerator oscillator. The thing is, even if we listen to Bill Williams' 2-bar confirmation, it's still going to come. When does it not come? Look, 2 bars red here, 2 bars green here, 2 bars red here. You get it every time anyway. It's just delayed even more. So 68, definitely rounding up. Got to give us that extra. This has been very rangy. Let's put them all up together again. The tri-chart set up there. Get rid of that ATR. So both these trades getting us in at the resistance level again. We've already had bad trades from them with buys before, getting a little bit of deja vu here. Surprisingly, US dollar, Canadian dollar at the moment looks like it may have survived the retracement as we go into profit here. However, over on the right on the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar trade, very close to our stop loss there. It looks like it's going to trigger. And there it does go. Although I can see, even though we set the stop loss correctly, we actually did get the amount wrong there. We calculated our risk incorrectly. If you go back, we accidentally had it set on for the conversion being done for the euro Swiss franc instead of for the Aussie dollar New Zealand dollar. So the ATR distance would have been the same to the stop loss and take profit. That didn't make a difference. But fortunately, through our mild incompetence there, we have managed to save ourselves about $30. Feeling very lucky. It is a loss though, and the accelerator oscillator has been duped twice today when it gets to this resistance level. It thinks, yeah, that is the run up, that's what you want to be in on. But then sellers step in because they know by looking at the chart that this is a level that has not been topped for a very long time. Let's put it onto the day chart. That is about 3 weeks ago or so that it was at that level. So traders not really feeling comfortable to go past that. Hence why we see such a strong reversal. Not too surprising for us at all. And we do take a loss. Just got to hope the US dollar, Canadian dollar can still find more strength in it and continue towards our take profit. In the meantime, a few numbers have come through. So we saw the PPI month on month for Brazil, 1.86 actual against 3.28% forecast. Still terrible, but not as terrible as it could have been. In fact, 1.86, the exact same as the previous. And then 3:30, we saw these Canadian numbers come through. The industrial product price index, negative 0.3. So that's pretty good. Actually, a little bit deflationary there instead of the 0.9% expected. And similarly with the raw materials price index, negative 2.4%. Pretty deep under there. They expected flat on a 2.2 previous. And the only other numbers we're really waiting on now are those pending home sales month on month and year on year from the US at 5 o'clock, just under an hour and a half until that. Until then, we can just hope that our trade here gets up a little bit higher, see some more green candles, as on the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar, we do see it start to pound down even further. One of those times where the stop loss could really prove a blessing. This might be the full reversal off that resistance level. Look at how far that Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar has crashed here. Wow, that is a steep fall for one candle. Fortunately, we continue to see a rise over here on the US dollar, Canadian dollar. Almost there, take profit there. One more push and we could see it. Just got to get across that finishing line. Boom, there we go. That's the take profit. A full 1% gain there, and thanks to our misstep on the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar, we made a little bit more money off the US dollar, Canadian dollar than we did that trade. If you're going to be dumb, it's good to be lucky, and so we do bag a winner. Any other trades coming up? Doesn't look like it at the moment. We're going to need more movement, but we may well see that because volume is coming into the market now at 3:30. Volatility increased. Needless to say, we are pretty pleased with that trade. I was much more expecting the response that we got from this Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar trade, where it smashed down. I didn't think it would go that far, but I did think it would bounce off there. Likewise, I thought that with the US dollar, Canadian dollar too. Fortunately, as we saw, it did run upward though. Just after 4:45 p.m. now, about an hour since our last update, and 15 minutes since the stock market opened, we have seen increased volume on all of our currency pairs. And with that came increased volatility as well. In terms of signals, not close to anything on the US dollar, Canadian dollar pair. The euro Swiss franc though, it is closing in on a sell trade after this red candle right here. If we see it stay flat or come down anymore, and on the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar, it's crept up over the last few periods, price ever so slowly making its way amongst the volatility. We could be having a third bash at this resistance level at some point. And would you look at the candle that we're going to see on the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar? Absolute joke of price action. We are going to get a buy trade once more, probably right at the top here, 15 minutes time at the end of this histogram bar. Third time lucky, third time's the charm. And it's so far above zero that I don't think it can be stopped. I think it would need a major reversal of the same kind. Meanwhile, suddenly seeing a big sell-off over here on the US dollar, Canadian dollar as well. Dropping like a rock. That US dollar, Canadian dollar turned upward again, pretty green over there. And that's off the back of pretty skittish numbers with the pending home sales compared to the forecast. Month on month was 8.1% actual against negative 2.8% forecast. So that's obviously very good. But then the year on year was negative 8.3% actual against 14.5% forecast. So pretty strange, but certainly the month on month, the more important one, and looking very strong from there. So not too surprising we see the dollar go up. And we are going to get that signal from the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar. Let's get the average true range up. 6.5, that's what we're on. So 1.5 of that is 9.75 pips. We do get the close. You can see our risk calculator on screen now. And for the third time today, at the highest point, we are in a buy trade here on the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar. Didn't like it that time, but hey, let's give it a go this time. That's 98 and 98 we're going to. But maybe it's a true move this time though. Maybe we see the Australian dollar make a real push, even though it retraces now for a minute, that continued push into the green up to our take profit level, wherever that is up there. As of right now though, the trade's actually looking okay. We're about a third of the way to the take profit, just under that now. But we're finding new highs, that's what we want. Keep those green candles coming. Let this US dollar, Canadian dollar pair over here be your inspiration. Don't go red, go green. And on the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar, amazingly, this push has continued and we are 3/4 of the way to our take profit. We can actually see the take profit level. That is incredible. It is going up and up. People are buying those Aussie dollars. They are loving them. Or hating the New Zealand dollar. We don't mind either way. Have a bit more of a push. And there it is, the last bit of strength we needed to get through. And price running past our take profit even. What a strong move on that chart. I have to say, as you heard, I thought this trade was going to be a complete joke and a real poor end to the day, but it's completely flipped the session on its head. And we've actually managed to come out a little bit on top here for the day. You can see it's $78.64. Even if we got the risk correct on this Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar trade, that would have only been an extra $33, meaning we still would have been at $45 positive for the day. That feels like a legitimate climax to the session, so we will end it there. Bit of a mixture, and I think the clear lesson is that when it does trend, hey, things go okay. But when it doesn't, when it stays in that range, you are inevitably going to get kicked out of trades. It was 3 gains and 3 losses today on our 6 trades, much better than the 5 losses, 2 gains yesterday. And we will be back for one more session of trading the Simple Accelerator strategy, so we will be back on the charts then. 8 minutes before 10 o'clock here, and we are back for the third and final session. What's happening on these charts? Over on the left, US dollar, Canadian dollar, price is above the moving average. We've just seen it cross on the accelerator oscillator above. Looks like we would have been in a buy trade around about here that would currently be moving a bit against us. We'll see how that one ends up. Euro, Swiss franc in the middle. Price has had a bit of a move the last few periods. Now might be coming off the top. Currently below the moving average still. So now we're on the lookout for that crossover on the accelerator oscillator below zero. That would get us into a sell trade. An Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar on the right. It's the opposite to that Euro Swiss franc. Price has been coming down here. A few red candles. And the accelerator oscillator with a big move beneath zero. If price does return, then we could get in with a buy trade. Judging from the last couple sessions, I don't think it will take too long for us to get into a trade with the accelerator oscillator. Before we do though, let's take a look at the economic calendar. There is a lot of events today, too many to fit onto one screen. We're going to do a whistle stop tour. We don't have time for everything. You can see it on screen if you do want to check out what's been going on. In Canada, happy National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Hopefully politicians above all else honour the day. What about numbers in the Asia session? Over in South Korea, retail sales month on month, negative 0.8 against a forecast of 0.3, dropping there, but not as badly as Japan. Month on month retail sales for them, negative 4.1 against a forecast of 1.3, so they missed the forecast by 5.4%. Big miss for them. New Zealand had building consents month on month coming at 3.8% versus 2.3% forecast, and the ANZ business confidence coming through a minus 7.2 actual versus minus 15.1 forecast. So a couple beats for them. China manufacturing PMI, non-manufacturing PMI, about as they were predicted. Australian building approvals month on month, they had a win there, 6.8% actual against a negative 6.4% forecast and a negative 8.6% previous. That was the Asian session. We've already had some numbers in the European, a few from the GBP. Business investment quarterly up 4.5%. That was forecast just at 2.4. Current account a bit better than expected as well. Negative 8.6 billion against negative 19. The big one though, GDP quarterly, and it is better than expected, 5.5% versus 4.8 forecast and 4.8 previous. And we also get the nationwide house price index month on month, year on year, which didn't come through yesterday. Month on month, 0.1% against forecast of 0.9. It's good to see house prices slow, and the previous was 2% increase last month. France have had their CPI in. It's good news for them, I'd say, under the particular circumstances, negative 0.2%. They were expecting 0.3. Inflation coming down a little bit there on the CPI, but then when we look at the PPI month on month, the producer's price index, 1% actual versus 0.8% forecast. So a touch higher than expected, which might feed through to the CPI down the line, but at least they haven't had runaway numbers on both. That's what we've had so far. 90 seconds time, we get the Swiss economic barometer. Unemployment numbers trickling in throughout the session as well. 10:55 Germany, 11 o'clock Italy, and 12 o'clock for the Eurozone as a whole. Also at 12 o'clock, we get the CPI and HICP from Italy. Their CPI is forecast at 0.2%. Month-on-month PPI for South Africa at 12:30. We do get the German CPI at 3 o'clock as well with the HICP. Monthly numbers, CPI forecast at 0.3% with a flat previous of 0.0. The biggest numbers coming at 3:30 though on the US dollar, GDP quarterly, and initial jobless claims. Have to look out for some volatility and volume going on there. Jerome Powell, chair of the Federal Reserve, back in testimony at 5 o'clock as well. Depends on what he's talking about, but you do usually expect to see some volatility when he's talking. Always potential for him to drop some major news as well, whether on purpose or by mistake under questioning. That is all the main stuff though. A lot of events on the calendar, as we said, numbers trickling in throughout the day that we'll keep an eye on, and then 3 o'clock till 5 o'clock, that's when we expect the real firepower. Big numbers, Jerome Powell's testimony could get pretty heated then. Let's head back onto the charts. No signals coming just yet as we roll over at 10 o'clock. Let's wait for them to come. 10:45 AM, Euro Swiss franc. We do see price coming down quite a bit, and the accelerator oscillator following suit. Zero line crossover potential over the next few periods. 11:15, and we're now nearing in on a couple signals here. Euro Swiss franc chart has moved below zero on the accelerator oscillator. Quite a sell-off last candle. 15 minutes time, likely that we'll be in a sell trade. Can't see a reversal coming that's going to change this value. And on the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar, we're looking for the crossover above zero, still below at the moment, but as green candles come, if this one finishes green, we'll be getting very close to it there. We have seen a pullback in price, but the entry is going to hold. Let's zoom in on the Euro Swiss franc chart here, and let's get up our ATR. 5.1 pips there is the reading, and that's what we're going in with. 1.5 times that, 7.65. That's the close. You can see we do get the signal, price below the average. Let's get in with our trade. You can see our risk calculator on screen now. And let's just do that. Stop loss and take profit here. 7.65, rounded up to 77 and 77. Bit of a distance either way. This is the take profit down here, and it's right at the support level. But likewise, this stop loss also at the resistance level. Meanwhile, let's have a look at what numbers have been feeding through on the economic calendar. That Swiss economic barometer, 110.6 versus 110.5 forecast. Basically on the nose there. Well predicted. German unemployment rate 5.5% now compared to 5.6% forecast. And we've also seen Italian unemployment rate at 9.3%. Overall quite a bit higher than Germany, but they also beat the forecast by a little bit, and they stayed equal to the previous of 9.3. Also back on the tri-chart setup, there has been a zero line crossover, another one now, Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar, green candle here, pushing it above, which means in just about 12 minutes time, if this one holds, we'll be in a buy trade. This one more likely to reverse. There's been less upward momentum than the downward momentum we saw on the Euro Swiss franc. At the moment though, looking like a trade. Only 5 minutes into this trade and we are getting absolutely pounded at the moment. 3/4 of the way to the stop loss. It's a big buy-in for the euro here. Hits the stop loss there. Not good at all. What a reversal that was. Didn't even make it through the candle. We're not worried though, because we're going to make it all back in 2 minutes time. This buy trade on the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar, it's going to be coming. Let's get in on that one. 45 seconds to go. Let us get with it and pull up that ATR. 6.4 pips is the reading. 1.5 times that, 9.6. Our risk is on screen now. We are ready to get in as soon as that close comes. On the dot for once. There we go. And of course the stop loss and the take profit there. 96 points. As per usual with the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar, it's up there somewhere, the take profit. Does seem as though our trade is going to make it through the first candle. That's a good start, and we're in a little bit of profit there. Keep on trucking, don't bounce off this level. Let's focus for a second though over on the US dollar, Canadian dollar, because we are seeing a buy signal come through here. We got price above the moving average, looks like it's going to hold, and the accelerator oscillator a touch above zero. We are at 9.7 pips for it, which is 14.55 when you multiply it by 1.5. 12 o'clock comes and we do get the close. Let's get in there. It's a buy trade. Stop loss, take profit. You got to have them, you got to set them. Can't just walk away from the screen for weeks. Looking not too shabby. It has been coming down for a good while. Hopefully it's due for a bounce here, even if it's a retracement. Take that profit. That's 2 trades we're in there on our flanks here. But right down the center, just be aware that we are now seeing a zero line crossover once again on the accelerator oscillator, this time above zero, and with such a hard run up on price, we are seeing that above the moving average as well. So we could have trades going on all the charts in just under 14 minutes. That signal isn't going to come though. Price turned red below the moving average. Still do see the crossover on the oscillator, but with the price on the wrong side of the average, not a move we can get in on. We'll have to just rely on our other 2 open trades, which are both going quite nicely at the moment, certainly to our favour. 20-1, and these trades have turned against us by just a touch, in the zone of loss at the moment for both those trades. A few more numbers that have been coming through. That Italian CPI month on month, negative 0.1%. Good for them bringing that down a bit. You didn't want to see too many consecutive months like that, but it's certainly good at the moment. Meanwhile, their HICP month-on-month came in at 1.4 against the forecast of 1. We also had Eurozone unemployment as a whole. They're usually pretty good with the forecast here, and no exception, 7.5 actual against 7.4 forecast. And then finally, just about 10 minutes or so ago, we had the South African PPI month-on-month, 0.8% actual against 0.9% forecast. No action for us at the moment. Let's just let these trades run, see how they go. Big run up here on the US dollar, Canadian dollar. Just pulled back from the high a touch, but you can see big buying strength come in. If we can get another push, should get the profit there. There we go, tags our line and does take the profit there. Fantastic stuff. Bit of good fortune with a strong run up here, but similarly, as we look into the mirror over on the other side for the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar, that is coming down the other way and looking ever more likely to hit our stop loss. As it still gets ever closer to our stop loss, we've got a minute before this candle closes here on the Euro Swiss franc. We're going to pull up our ATR there because we are getting a sell signal, which is giving us a reading of 6 pips exactly. 1.5 times that, 9 pips. You can check out our risk for that on screen now as we enter our sell trade. There we go, a bit of a better price than last time. We got in here before. Hopefully this doesn't make consistently higher lows there and retrace. Set that stop loss and take profit in. Alright, and we are good to go. Pretty wide there, as the ATR has been increased from this volatility and the volume that we've seen in the last couple candles. We want to see it go red as possible though. Part like the Red Sea, not over here on the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar. I want to see that green, but here on the Euro Swiss franc. And the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar pair finally triggers our stop loss there. Saw that coming for the last couple periods. Needed a big push back to try and get away from there. Doesn't happen though, so those last 2 trades, basically a bit of a wash. We happened to make $5 more on the one we gained compared to the one we lost. But still, after all that, they cancel each other out and we are now riding all on the Euro Swiss franc. Some people I imagine noticed this. I've missed it entirely. Here on that trade we were just in, the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar trade. Obviously blind as a bat, hadn't noticed that the accelerator oscillator did actually close below zero right here. So that is where we should have shut off the trade. Wouldn't have saved us much there, just about 2 pips or so, but definitely would have saved a little bit. Never pleased with seeing an unforced error. Cost you an extra 15 bucks here or there. Doesn't seem like much at the time, but you add those up over 20 trades a day. Oof. We live and learn though. Hopefully. 2:45 now in our trade. It's just seen a red candle, looking quite nice there. Not quite in profit again yet, but getting close after it's just been ranging above our entry price a bit for the last hour or so. Meanwhile, over on the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar on the right, could be looking at a buy trade. Not over the zero line yet. Any more green periods though, likely to see a shift in momentum, and nothing for us just yet on the US dollar, Canadian dollar. Price just ranging. Our trade continuing to go quite smoothly. Another red candle like that and we'll get across the finishing line. That's all we can hope for. Meanwhile, that Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar pair, price has come down a lot in the last period. Might even be enough that next period it flips it below zero. But for now, it is actually giving us that entry signal because it's going to close the accelerator oscillator above zero. So let's get up that ATR. 5 pips exactly, so that's 7.5 pips for the stop loss take profit calculation. You can see how our risk is calculated on the screen. And we'll be going in with a pretty dubious buy trade here. We do see the accelerator oscillator has flipped below zero, but we don't actually have a rule about that. Well, we do have a rule. What the rule is that we've got to wait for it to actually close. See if it sticks. Still very shallow at the moment. If it comes green with a bit of reversal, everything should go fine. But as is, a pretty weak move from the accelerator oscillator. Let's get that take profit and stop loss in. Also on the calendar, German CPI came in at 3 o'clock, 0.0 again compared to the previous. They had it forecast at 0.3 this time around, but they have held the line again, absolutely flat across the board in their prices there. Well played. Just over 10 minutes time until we get the GDP quarterly coming out of the US, along with their weekly initial jobless claims. That's the move we were after right there. Profit taken on the Euro Swiss franc. It's a complete win there, and I'm glad we were able to take it a minute before 3:30 here, so before the big numbers come out. Keeps pushing down there. How much momentum is in it? And as the clock does strike 3:30, this accelerator oscillator hasn't reversed. I'm already seeing more losses come. The more we dally, or maybe more gains, we'll close it off. We'll try and close it off. Pretty poor loss from what it could have been there. That's that 3:30 volatility immediately settling in. Finished $60 down. Bit of a waste there because the accelerator oscillator did immediately reverse. Something to reflect on, whether when we're taking entry signals, we say yes if we get the close like that above zero, we enter, but not if the accelerator oscillator has immediately flipped. And probably not entering the trade going into one of the most volatile times of the day. So now we're in no active trades. If I was to predict what the next trade we would get might be, I'd say a long on the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar. I could see a reversal coming into that, but I'm no mystic. And the US numbers coming through pretty sharp there. GDP quarterly, the tiniest possible beat for them, 6.7 actual against that 6.6% forecast. And the weekly initial jobless claims, 362,000 against the forecast of 329,000. Around about a 10% miss there. Not ideal, but certainly could have been worse. Just after 4:30, and it does look like we are going to get that signal back in with a buy trade in 13 minutes on the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar. The accelerator oscillator quite above zero. It's going to need a big red candle to reverse that. Doesn't seem likely at all to me, but hopefully we get a bit of red so we can get a nicer pullback on the entry. Let's not get in at the high of the day up at this resistance here. And that close is going to come. Let's pull up the Aussie dollar New Zealand chart. Get that average true range in. 5.4 pips is the reading. That'll be 8.1 to the stop loss. And it's another buy trade from us. So this one's a winner. Highest one of the day, as you can see, and it's already coming back down. Potential here that we are in right at this resistance level. Even if we zoom out, it's not looking good. So we better make sure to set our stop loss. And I suppose we'll do the take profit as well. There it is, our stop loss. Already about halfway towards it here, just under a minute into the trade. And with the least amount of surprise, we do see the stop loss triggered on our Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar buy trade. 3 buy trades we've had on here today. 1, 2, 3. Pretty bad. And we will say 3 strikes and we are out. We're still not getting the crossover on the US dollar, Canadian dollar pair. In fact, it's gone further down below zero. Although I will just report on the last numbers of the day coming out. The Chicago Business Barometer in the US, 64.7 actual against 70.3 forecast. A little bit weaker than expected for the business outlook there. but not catastrophic by any means. So we do finish the strategy with about a 2.5% loss. From our starting balance, we were up at $10,000 exactly when we started, finishing at $9,742.34. Not a good day's trading today, particularly on the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar. We've had so many buy trades on this one the last few days. A couple of them come good, most of them, particularly today, really poor. And that was our final session, so let's round off all of our trades in the journal. Our lovely journal. Let's scroll to the bottom and see the final numbers. That is the bottom line, down $257.66. 19 trades in 3 days across the 3 charts. Day 1, it looked pretty bad. We sort of had the loss sandwich here. Started with a gain, which was great, and that was a buy trade on the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar. We did manage to finish with a gain as well, but all those 5 trades in between did put us down for the day, which immediately puts you on the back foot, facing uphill struggle for the rest of the strategy. As we came into day 2, these 6 trades here, we did actually manage to get 3 gains, 3 losses. With a bit more from our gains than our losses, we were able to pull some back, and that left a little bit of hope for us with the strategy that maybe we were just unlucky for the first day, and now the true colours had been revealed with a little bit of an edge on it. But come day 3, that theory was completely squashed, as we have had 4 losses and only 2 wins, and we can see the true devastation of what happens with the accelerator oscillator in a whipsaw range. 3 trades on the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar today, all of them losses. And you might notice on the left hand side of the journal, I have asterisked a couple of the trades here where it says buy. Those are the ones just so we know where we've made errors on. Those were 2 completely unforced errors. One was risk related and actually ended up saving us $30 or so. Pretty fortunate there. But this other one, we could have saved about $20, $30 maybe, because we should have manually closed the trade before it found its way to the stop loss. So those errors basically balance themselves out there, but usually errors will end up with more losses than gain. This one was a bit of an exception, I would say. Overall, at least there is plenty of green trades out there that we can see, meaning that you're not going to be left in complete misery, but it's not enough to leave us above our starting balance at the close. Before the video ends, let's just give our final thoughts on the strategy. The first thing that I think is worth mentioning is that we did get quite a few trades out of the strategy. Even trading on just 3 charts on the 15-minute time frame, it gave us plenty of action. If you wanted to, you could then lower the time frame, increase the amount of currency pairs you're trading on. There's all sorts of ways for you to get in a lot more trades if that's what you're aiming for. But for 3 sessions, I do think that the strategy managed to get us a decent sample size of trades. And that's mostly because of how quickly the accelerator oscillator can turn on you. It will tend to head towards that 0 line pretty quickly if price reverses, or even if price just stays in a range. The latter of those can be problematic, as you may end up closing the trade in the range when price never actually decided what it wants to do. That being said, it could of course decide to actually go against you, but that I think is a risk worth taking, as you can actually make any money if price doesn't move at all. After taking the amount of trades that we did, I'm at least pleased that the strategy didn't obliterate our demo account. A few winning trades were peppered in amongst the losers, so if you are managing your money properly, using tools like the ATR, capping your risk per trade at 1 or 2%, the damage shouldn't be all terrible. But that is the most praise I could possibly give it. We all saw the story and the end result wasn't pleasant. It might not have destroyed the account, but it has still lost quite a bit of money by the final whistle. If you were playing this strategy every single day on every single forex pair, then it may not take long for your account to become a hollow shell of its former self. On that basis, there is no way that I could recommend the strategy be used to actually try and make consistent profits without adding tweaks of your own, so as to make sure that liability for your losses is without doubt removed from me. Use a different filter for the accelerator oscillator, switch up the money management to include a trailing stop loss, or go for a 2-to-1 profit ratio instead of our measly 1-to-1. There's options out there. It's certainly a moldable strategy. Best of luck to you if that is your life's aim. I will absolutely not be tagging along for that journey. And if you are stuck in a cupboard hiding away from any kind of demon or leviathan, and you do want to ease your mind with more information on the indicators or the strategy used here, then there is a bit of that in the description. And a final word of warning to remember that this strategy was traded with demo money, plastic money, fake stuff. If you are enticed by the results from this strategy and you do want to take it live with real money, then I think it's fair to say you probably have very questionable judgment regardless, and it's unlikely that I'll be able to convince you otherwise. Just try and be a sensible person and it'll probably work out. Thank you for watching. This is Project Trade. I am Darth Trader. There will be more.